General Protocol Spaces. Banking on Freedom.
All right. Are we on? Can I get a mic check?
I'm here.
Yes.
Nice.
Good morning.
Hey, Dagger.
Hey.
Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to meet you guys again.
Yeah. I invited the Black Cat to come up, but I'm not sure if they'll come on. Maybe we'll just do a thing where we just put everybody on the stage who comes in. All right. Yeah, I think Jonathan, you had I posted on the thread of this space the post that you just made earlier today about comparison of what's like how decisions are made in BCH and in BTC, and man, it's just it doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the difference between the two, right? It's so massive, but it's a really good thread and it has the right links. Like if somebody wants to actually go check into it and see what it is.
Yeah,
So I recommend anybody who listens to this go and check out the thread and see the post that Jonathan made.
Yeah, so a quick note on that. I wanted to make sure that I looked at only recent information. And so I looked at the Taproot upgrade on the BTC side. But the thing that actually prompted me to look at these things in the first place is the various bips for raising the block size in different ways. And I can understand how they did not get the consensus on the level of detail they have alone. Those chips are bips are much shorter than the Taproot bip. It's like half of the Taproot bip, and it's like there was a lot of discussion around the time, and I think there was a lot of effort in various nodes to actually implement and test things, but the consensus building process, the BIP, that part of the BIP, it was nowhere to be found.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it certainly looked like it was. Well, yeah, we won't get into that, but it just wasn't there.
Well, I mean, the consensus building there over there generally relates to generally means a few posts on the mailing list, and then followed by a very long and protracted process of Twitter flame wars. So
yeah, not mention the GitHub attacks, but you know, it's voting effectively, so.
Kinda. At least the appearance of voting.
Yeah.
But I think to be fair, we in BCH have had a unique set of circumstances that led to what we have right now. That these two processes were simply born from different environment and circumstances, and that led to what they are today. The BTC process it came from an ancient era when there was only a few developers and the community was terribly small. So the content that was needed back then was basically just describe what it is, and there's not that much that's needed. Everything else is just there.
Not exactly though, because Jonathan compared to recent stuff, right? Which is much more close to the
But processes have a lot of inertia.
Right.
While ours was born during a time of crisis, and so our priority was to forge consensus and improve confidence, because we have learned from our disasters that without those two we're not going anywhere. So we put the crisis to good use, and I think that's valuable.
Fair enough that the process does have inertia, and BTC process is quite lacking in the current context, right?
The consensus process for one of the bips, BIP 101, was quite interesting though, because at some point there was miner signaling, so more than 70% of the miners were signaling for that consensus change. However,
Yeah, that was the appearance of voting, right?
yeah,
Which was then ignored.
but I think
completely ignored.
But I think like a missing thing at that point was that no one had implemented BIP 101. It was just a document at that time. So perhaps if someone had implemented it in time, then maybe.
I think what was missing was, I don't want to get into what I actually think about the BTC consensus process. What have you thought, Degger, about the where BCH is today compared to before, not just BIP, but where we were in past years? How have you been thinking about that? I haven't heard you talk about it anywhere.
I'm very happy with the progress. To see BCH being extended in, I think it's taking a very good direction, and it's being extended in a very useful way. And some of the changes, like Integra 64, which I thought at the time, yeah, it's probably nice, but I see now that I myself actually have use for it. So it's really nice to see such forward thinking by people other than me, I guess.
It wasn't made up.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but that's I think the original chips made a pretty good case for it. Like Jonathan said in his thread today, if you go look at all the chips that have gone through, of course they've improved over time, but from the beginning they were already just an order of magnitude more in depth and considering the full set of consequences and values and benefits of some particular change. So yeah, I think it was pretty convincing back then. It had quite a bit of evidence tagged on to each of the chips about why it was valuable and why it was low cost or low pain.
Yeah, for sure. It's a high quality chips for sure.
Yeah, that's I think at least for me personally, that was the most pleasant surprise over the past few years, which is that we got a process sort of we came out of a crisis, we made a process that hopefully will sort of work, but it doesn't matter what the process is if nobody participates in it, right? It needs people to do the freaking work, to put their blood and sweat into it, and people stepped up, and each time, not only did people step up, each time different people stepped up, and everybody else kind of help out, and it was a lot of work that people have put into this proposals, and I think for me personally, that was the most pleasant surprise.
Yeah, so it might have been a surprise, but maybe it shouldn't have been, because we had multiple years, many years of Bitcoin Cash history where upgrade specifications were finalized like within the last 30 days before they went to go into production. And people who had things they wanted to do tried in many different ways to work with this lack of process and never really got any result that was satisfying to them. And then after the ship process was proposed, one of the important first steps for that new process was getting one ship, the first one, into a very, very good state and very clearly show the outside world and all these people who have been thinking and wanting things that this is actually a way to achieve a goal you have. Because before then, it was just like, can you please whomever was deciding at the time? But now it's okay, so I have all these things that I can do, and they will tell me along the way if I'm on the right track or if it's not going to work out. And yeah, it now became viable. It became something that I think and I believe that I can actually do it, because this proved that you could do it in a different way than before. And so, of course, people will copy things that are valuable and works.
I think it's I don't want to get into it, I guess, but I think it's very interesting that people like Justin Bonds specifically, right? Because he was involved back in 2015, 16, 17 in the initial steps where developers and people were looking at, okay, look, this the Bitcoin core thing is not working, and there's something wrong. There's something really wrong here, and we just have to do an alternative because this isn't going to work out. And so when they started working on that, Justin Bonds was involved, and he helped with the early discussion of what's going to be done and tried to provide resources to make things happen. But then later on, right, he's come to the conclusion that oh no, it has to be DAOs or it has to be some kind of on-chain governance. And there's others who have similar ideas. So I'll be interested to see, how this goes, because none of us know exactly what the future is, but it'll be interesting to see how this kind of on-chain versus human type consensus process, how that all plays out. And one of the key points that I always point out in these is that at least in these cases, right, we're not trying to solve human governance as we take over the galaxy, right? We're just trying to solve how to develop a permissionless money network and how to make decisions on a permissionless money network until it gets to the point that it's at scale.
And importantly, not blow up in the process.
Yeah, how to actually get there. Yeah, practical, right? That's I think one of the great things is the practical focus of the stuff we're doing.
To build on what Jonathan was saying, I think that we have seen now that the chip process works. So that if you put in the effort and put a lot of time into it, you might get somewhere, which was not the case before, right? Someone had the decision making process. But now you can actually see that if you put in the work, it might actually get in, and that is very motivating to put more time into it.
It's important to emphasize might.
Might. Yeah, might. That's right. And there's no begging going on, right? It's great. And I'm very sorry. So I'm a horrible host here. Dago, could you give us a short introduction about what you're doing these days and who you are and whatever it is you'd like to say about you and what you're working on?
Okay, I can start with what I'm working on, I guess. Currently, I'm working on Cauldron, the Cauldron DEX. So it's a decentralized exchange on Bitcoin Cash using native Bitcoin Cash script. And I'm trying to get it into what I would call a good beta version. It is already working now. You can go in and you can swap different fungible tokens, and we're seeing some swap activity, especially with Doge Cash. They're getting a lot of activity, which is nice. So I'm putting in effort to make what I think are the two most important features before our beta release. And one of them is to actually use all the liquidity available. So Cauldron works like normally you would put all the liquidity of a liquidity pool of a DEX into one contract. Cauldron works a bit different. You put it into your personal liquidity pool. So all the liquidity isn't available in a single contract. However, you can make use of multiple liquidity pools when you do a trade. So as it's currently working, it just uses one pool, so it's like limited liquidity, and you get a high price impact unless the pool is very big. So what I'm working on is to make a transaction use many liquidity pools in one transaction to make it effectively work as traditional DEX.
That's so cool. I love the ability to compose that way with UTXOs, where it's a little bit more complex to get it going, but then you at the end you don't have one gigantic pot of money just begging to be rugged or or stolen or whatever.
Yeah, and also, it also makes the contract super simple, right?
Right. Yeah, they're so much more simple. Yeah, the UTXO contracts are just fantastically more simple.
It moves the complexity from the blockchain and into the user interface itself. I think that is the way with like most Bitcoin Cash contracts. the code is quite simple, but you have to put more effort into the user experience.
Right.
Yeah, I think, and that is actually a main differentiator that we have against the status quo EVM contracts. And as time goes on, I think we would keep discovering new ways to exploit this difference, and that is awesome. We don't need to be an also ran.
Yeah, and it makes the blockchain a lot more scalable, right? Because contracts are very simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is like one of the features.
Yeah.
And the other feature I really want to get in before the beta is to actually see some statistics for the liquidity providers, so they can see like how many trades have been done, how much earnings they have had, and so on. I think that is also important.
Okay, so analytics on all the on-chain data.
Yeah. And then
from individuals' perspective.
Yeah,
nice.
And what is nice also is that you can just. I don't have a user database, right? All the data you see on Cauldron Dex for your personal account is just directly queried from the blockchain.
Oh wow! Okay, very nice. It's all on chain. Excellent.
And so will like the price querying and statistics from your liquidity pool. It will be just blockchain queries.
So that's the main thing you're working on, is the Cauldron these days, right? Are there any other big projects that you're working on? Or
I'm also working on the Rostrum Electrum server, and it's
okay. Is that like
it's an Electrum server?
Is that an upgrade of
what?
The previous one? What was it called? What was the name of it?
It was
Electors.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, we just renamed the projects rather than.
Oh, okay. It's an upgrade of, it's a continuation of Electors. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm also using it as a backend for Cauldron, so it's kind of.
Okay.
I'm very motivated.
And for those who don't know, who are listening, who know Flipstarter, so Dagger here was one of the very key people who we worked together, right, as a team to make, as a very ad hoc, suddenly created emergency team to create Flipstarter. So this is kind of a reunion of the gang a bit here, of the gang that created Flipstarter. So Dagger did fantastic work there.
Oh, thank you. So did you guys?
Yeah, we worked pretty hard on that. Very cool.
Hard effort for a short time.
So could you describe about Cauldron? I'm very interested in, probably I don't know enough here, but what's the high level concept of what Cauldron is going to do, and anything that it's not going to do? You know, like if people think, oh, it's a DEX, you know, they have an image of a DEX because, you know, they've been using a lot of EVM things. That's what everybody has in their mind. So what's the kind of the Venn diagram of, it does this and it doesn't do that, and it does this new thing also? Like how does that work at a high level? Not exactly what it is today, but where it's going. Like what is Cauldron?
So Cauldron is basically similar to Uniswap version 2. It is a. Should I explain like how decentralized exchanges work in general?
I don't know. I think more like, at least at the beginning, like at a high level, for a user who doesn't know exactly how everything works, like what are the expectations that someone coming from Uniswap v2, what are the expectations that they would say, oh, I know what this is, and then the things that they would say, oh, I don't know what this is, I don't know how this works, or this is different?
I think it would be very much the same.
Really?
You just go in and you can swap the tokens you have, and you can add to a liquidity pool. And from a user perspective, I think the user experience will be very much the same, except that much cheaper, right? Because you have Bitcoin Cash.
A little bit.
Yeah. You're not paying
A little
$6
bit.
for a swap. You're paying
That whole scalability thing, global state, whatever.
On that, I have to ask, how do you handle concurrency, right? If many people wants to swap at the same time, given that it's UTXO, how does that compare to the Ethereum world, and how are you working with it?
so when you are in the swap interface, you are subscribed to all the UTXOs of the token you are wanting to swap. And there has to be some selection process, right? Which pools do you want to perform the swap with? And it's quite a challenge if you have just few pools and you have perhaps, I should say, a concurrency issue where many people want to swap at the same time. However, if, as I envision it, you have thousands of pools because you have like thousands of users and every user has their own pool, then you have a large selection. So by nature, you will have a lot of UTXOs to choose from. And if you like have a good selection process for which UTXOs to use when you perform the swap, this should not become a big issue.
All right, so let me see if I understand it. So you don't have any reservation process. So it's first come, first serve. Everyone knows about all the UTXOs. Now, if I were to do that process on EVM, and another person were doing, like, taking the same amount of money or whatever, I would end up with a failed transaction that I would pay fees for, and that would do nothing good for me on chain. But I assume, since you're on a UTXO chain here, that if you try to broadcast the end result of your action and you get a response back that says that, hey, these UTXOs have already been spent, you'll just reselect some UTXOs and do it again, right?
Yeah, you just have to do it again. It's true.
And is that process automated, or is that like you get an error and you have to click the button again?
Right now, it's not automated. You would have to click the button again. But you could do it automated. You could say, for example, okay, I will accept some slippage, right? Because the price changes. So
Yeah.
you may not get the exact same price, but if you say, okay, I am okay with 0.1% slippage, then you can have a process that just picks another set of UTXOs and tries again, or picks the updated UTXO. So again, it's a lot of work on the user interface side, while it's very simple on the blockchain, as mentioned before.
Oh man, I would love to see have you made some kind of presentation about, here's how Uniswap v2 works, here's how Cauldron works, and here's the key differences? Have you ever put something like that together, like an educational type presentation?
No, I haven't. But of course, if you have a conference for me, then maybe I might.
Well,
if you're willing to hold a talk, I'd be more than happy to provide a little space for you. But it will be to very technically minded people. It won't be to a general public situation. I can talk more about that later.
Yeah, of course. I can just. I love to talk technical, so it's fine.
Yeah, I would love to see that, just because right there's a big element of education where and it's interesting. Jonathan has been pointing out a lot these days. If you go into the BCH telegrams or other channels, you'll see people coming from EVM chains and asking questions. People coming both as developers and people looking for apps. But it's really interesting when you see the trader, not the traders, the developers come in, some kind of builders. I mean, it's a total mind fuck for them, but right, because they're like, okay, they have all these assumptions for EVM and shared state and so forth, and then it's just like you just turn that box upside down and you're just like, shake it, dump all your ideas out, like forget everything, and start over, because their concepts are all wrong, right? They're all based on global state and accounts, which those two alone just kind of break the thought process.
I guess you have to like uneducate them, like just
Yeah. Yeah, really.
forget everything you know.
Yeah.
Time to learn again.
Have you found anything along those lines that's a kind of useful general advice for, because you've actually taken a concept that was developed quite deeply on Uniswap v2 and developed something very similar in UTXO. Are there any kind of general principles that you would say you've learned in that kind of transfer of idea, achieving the same outcome in a very different way?
Sorry, what was the question?
So have you found any general kind of rules or approaches that work to say, okay, you have this app that works on EVM and you want to have the same experience on UTXO? These are the main things to think about, or the main difficulties you're going to have, or these are the easy parts, these are the hard parts. What have you kind of noticed as you did that yourself?
I mean, the main difference in developing for EVM and UTXO, I think, is that just developing the contract isn't enough. You have to actually design the transactions, because it's introspection, right? And what you're limiting what kind of transaction you can build from this UTXO. So you have to not only program the contract itself, you kind of have to, for lack of a better words, program the transaction itself to fit with the contract. It's not like some remote call to a global state. It is, I don't know.
Right. Programming the transactions. Like, you have to be aware of the transactions. Like, yeah, it's something you won't be able to get around, at least not at this point, right? You have to really understand what's going on in a transaction, I guess. It's a significant difference.
Yeah, you have to really think about how you design your transaction, like what goes into input 0, what goes into output 0, and so on. It's a very different way because like smart contracts are basically restricting how you use money, right? It's restricting, you have to do this and this and this. Then then you're allowed to spend this UTXO, and a big part of that is actually restricting how the transaction is supposed to look like, if it makes sense. I don't know.
Right. Which happens kind of in the background on EVM, where you just make a call and then the call has all this complexity behind it that that creates the transaction. One thing I've seen several times is people looking at doing stuff with cash tokens, or just scripting on Bitcoin Cash smart contracts. Is they're like, well, I have all this state and it's so easy on EVM, because they just dump shit onto the chain. So they can just do that with tons of data, like significant amounts of data. But then they say, oh, but look, cash tokens, it only has like 40 bytes, it's a small thing, and then there's actually no global place. Where do I put my data? And they seem to struggle with that idea. But you said all the data that you need is actually on chain also. So what's the difference there? Like, what would you say to somebody who comes into Bitcoin Cash and says, oh, I need a place to put all my data, but where the hell do I put it?
I mean, you could, well, I don't know. You have to put it in the transaction itself,
I know
right?
it's a trick question, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have to forward it. Basically, you have to.
So for like the Uniswap, right? Like, it has a large amount of data in it. So what's the translation of that? Where's all that state that Uniswap has? Where's all that state effectively stored once you do it on Bitcoin Cash?
For the cold run contract, you can just the data is in the input, right? Because in the input you can see how many. Okay, the contract is using the unique feature of Bitcoin Cash that a UTXO can contain both any amount of satoshis and any amount of token, right? So when you take in that UTXO, the cold run UTXO, you can see how many satoshis are in the contract and how many tokens, and from that you know, like, okay, if I change the amount going out, it just has to like fit into this equation, then it's okay. So I get all the data I need, the state, and the only thing you check is the money going out equal to the money going in according to this formula, and also do you also forward the contract itself, right? You have to forward the contract itself, create a new UTXO. I don't know how to describe it in a easy way. I have to think about it.
So let me ask a related question, maybe. When I try to describe the way of working with UTXO contracts and transactions to developers who aren't familiar with crypto and who don't additionally hate crypto, because that's often the case, but the ones who don't hate it and want to know something about it, I use the concept of functional programming, not the deeper parts of it, but just the fundamental part of functional programming. You know, the inputs determine the outputs, and there's nothing in between. Do you think that's a decent kind of description of it, that the state is stored in the UTXOs, and when you do a transaction, it's inputs, and those inputs alone determine the output that happens, the further outputs on chain, as you said, restricting money and how the money moves? Is that you think a fair description? Is that how Cauldron is working? Do you think that is a description of how Cauldron works?
Yeah, I think it's a good description. Because you have to provide all the inputs, right? There is nothing on chain you can use except UTXO itself. You can provide like additional parameter. For example, if you want to withdraw from a Cauldron contract, you have to provide a signature proving that this liquidity pool is yours. Yeah, you can take it. But yeah, like describing it as a function where you have all the inputs and that determines the output is a good way to put it.
Okay. Yeah, it's also one of the things, at least that way of describing it is one of the ways that makes it easy to understand why what's the other chain? The one that made the screw up where they can only do like one transaction per block on a smart contract. Cardano, was that? I think it was Cardano. Anyway, they had made the mistake, right?
I don't know if they fixed it, but yeah.
Well, they made some pretty fundamental mistakes, like just basic computer science mistakes, right? Where you make a transaction and it has inputs, but then it also depends on some other state, right? The transaction is like, oh, I'm going to look at what block this is or what the time is of the block or that kind of thing. And then that data is now coming from the outside. It's not actually an input to the transaction. And that just breaks the model of, the functional model that makes Bitcoin Cash so scalable, because you don't have to have all this other stuff. You don't have to know what the global state is. You just have to know your inputs and your output, and that's it. Okay, cool. Jonathan, would this be a good time to talk about your super secret project, or is it going to stay super secret?
Which one of them?
Yeah, you choose. Choose one.
Choose one. No. You have to be more specific.
Okay. The one in Europe.
Okay, the one in Europe. Okay, so you're talking about the mini conference or the get together, whatever. Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So, some weeks ago now, I noticed that eCash were holding a conference, and I got reminded that I really liked going down to the Bitcoin Cash conference in Townsville, Australia. And we haven't had a physical get-together in a long time. The last one was in St. Kitts. And so we've been talking on and off for a long time about like someone should do this. And it would be good if it were in Europe, because the travel cost to go intercontinental is kind of high. Not all people who want to come to something can come to something because there's restrictions. And so I looked at this conference in eCash, and the website did not include a full list of program. People who were coming were listed that may or may not come, and you couldn't pay with eCash in order to go there. And it was all not great. It was all arranged by a single person who didn't put that much time and effort into actually making it great. But it was happening, and it did happen. And people did meet up, and those who were there say it was nice, right? And so I figured, you know what, maybe I can do this, right? I'm not an event planner by trade, but maybe I can do this. And so I threw up a Twitter thread and just asked, like, hey, if I do this, no guarantee that I will. If I do this, will you come? And the response was pretty good. Of course, saying yes to a Twitter poll is not quite a commitment, so it doesn't really matter that much. A couple of days after, I started thinking about like what would it actually be, and realized that I don't know. I don't know what it would be. So I sent out a message to people who I would like to be there, people I know would be very interesting to talk to, or who could add value by just coming. And to my surprise, I actually got a fairly strong commitment back of people who say clear, yes, I will be there. It doesn't really matter what you're hosting, I'll be there anyway. And so I looked at the people, I had some more discussions, and I think I've boiled it down now to some more practical description of things. So here it comes. What I'm working on now and trying to do is to have a 2-day meetup, right? It's just a meetup. I'm not going to have tickets. I'm not going to have conferences with a bunch of different, clearly rigidly scheduled talks. It's going to be a meetup, and it's going to be a meetup that's focusing on the technical aspects of BCH. It's going to happen the day before and on the Bitcoin Cash upgrade day. And it will split up such that on the first day, we'll have some kind of workshop where I provide power, internet, and space. And people who have really interest in projects, among them Daker, a lot of people from the Cash Token, Cash Ninjas, Gurus, whatnot, a lot of different projects that are current in our ecosystem have said that they want to be there and are going to come if it's technically possible. And so a workshop on the first half of the first day, and then I'm going to leave it open for the other half of the day for people to do whatever they want. They can go out on town, they can sit in the same space and just keep working on whatever they want to work on. They can socialize, they can talk and discuss. I'm not going to leave it open-ended for that part, the second half of the first day. On the second day, it's going to be the Bitcoin Cash upgrade point. And so over the upgrade hours, it'll be a formalized event. We'll sit in the same workspace and we're gonna just celebrate that we're doing this upgrade. And I think this year is probably the best possible time to have that kind of celebration, because the upgrade that we are going to get next year, according to all social pressure I can see right now, is the dynamic block size upgrade. So we won't have a, once it upgrades, I want to try all these new opcodes, or I have this project I want to drop. No one is preparing their project to coincide with this upgrade. The upgrade is just going to be a good technical underlying feature of the blockchain, and that's it. So my plan is that for that specific time period, I will try to make someone, possibly me, go over our past achievements. Right? Go through, this is the upgrades we've had, this is the things we've gone through, and this is why they are valuable and how they're being used today. And this should help instill like a sense of confidence and some pride in all the people there. And then I will also try to have someone, also again possibly me, have a little talk about what opportunities are on the table today. not pending some other future consensus upgrade. It's just in Bitcoin Cash, we have all these opportunities that someone could work on. And I just want to kind of help highlight so that everyone is aware of them. And then if people want to work on them, that's great. And if not, at least they know they're there, can talk about them with others, and we'll see where that goes. So kind of like a celebration and some talks in there. And then again, after unstructured time, you can do whatever you want.
I'll buy drinks for the upgrade day. A few.
Sounds great.
It sounds fantastic.
Dagger, I want to hear Dagger's presentation about all this stuff about Cauldron. I really want to learn more about how it works. It's I don't know, right? This is kind of a historical thing. I guess you see it the same way, right, Dagger? I don't know. That's how I feel about a lot of the stuff we do, where it's like, okay, well, this is the first time anybody's ever done this. This is the first time anybody's ever done this, right? It doesn't seem big now, but wait, this really is the first time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's fun to be the first X on Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, 10 years later, you'll look back and be like, why did we do it that way? I have no idea, but that's where we were at the time.
But also like experimental stuff, like Bitcoin Cash Artist, he created like the popcorn machine. Have you tried it?
Yeah, of course. I have several buckets and several popcorn fungibles. Yeah, it's the combo, right? I love the combo.
Yeah, you get.
I actually have a question for you, Digger. Sometime back in the past, there was this soda dispensing machine that took Bitcoin Cash and sent emails when it wanted to refill itself. Is that one still alive?
It was alive for like I guess almost 2 years, and it sold like I think close to 1,000 beverages.
And it was like self-funding, right? It would send out a request when it didn't have enough stock or something like that.
Yeah, and also at some point we just said, like, if you go to the store and fill it up, we will not only give you back Bitcoin Cash, we will give you back like 5% extra.
Nice. Incentivized fridge.
Yeah, it's like a
perpetuating fridge.
Fiat gateway that pays above market rate. But unfortunately, people started to move off this, and then it kind of died off.
Okay. Yeah, that works when there's the gang that's there.
We also modified it to like at some point you could have SLP NFTs, right? And Bitcoin Cash Wallet supported that. So we modified it so that every time you purchased a beverage, it would send back a like fortune cookie.
Nice. Like an op return? Like there would be like a fortune and op return or something?
No, it was a fortune. Like SLP had some support.
Oh, right, SLP. Okay, it was the SLP ones, right? Okay. Nice.
It would be nice to upgrade it to use cash tokens.
Yeah, and Bitcoin Cash Altus. Yeah, you're right. He showed up here. He's also done a number of firsts, right? So I don't know who all made the very, very first of what, but right, the Emerald DAO is out there, which is a very interesting proof of concept of, put money in and incentivize people to save money and time locks and so forth. So Emerald DAO is quite interesting. Then the popcorn, right? So whenever something spicy is going on, you can go long on popcorn or short popcorn. There's and then there's the buckets, right? You can put the popcorn into your buckets. What else has Bitcoin Cash Altus done? He's done all kinds of things. He did the stuff for AnyHedge, where he wrote some scripts to detect AnyHedge transactions, redemptions online on chain. So it goes and looks on chain at all the transactions and says, oh, okay, all of these are AnyHedge, and then it compiles stats on those. And then he helped DeFi Llama to have a script that they run, and then that gets the data for them so that then they can show the AnyHedge activity, the AnyHedge volume that's going on, which is great, right? Because that's if they wanted to, they could run that themselves. They don't need anybody. They could just go query that online and on chain and get all the data. Oh, what else has Bitcoin Cash all just done besides the chips, the max block size chip, which we were talking about? Thank you, BCA, for that.
Well, it has CRC20 parser, which is quite useful.
CRC24. Oh god, that'll take too long to explain why that's funny. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But also the Bitcoin Cash Audit has been very helpful for me to help me debug, amongst other, like the Cauldron contract.
So he's like the super master of BitAuth IDE, which is like this piece of software that Jason Drasner made that lets you kind of create and set up and configure smart contracts on Bitcoin Cash in a very kind of unified way. I think he's like the first master of that, probably. Maybe he can use it even faster than Jason. I don't know. Maybe not, but he's up there. Him and Jason probably. Like, is that what you guys use to develop things, or did you use something else?
Or asking me?
Yeah, for Cauldron. What did you guys use to develop it?
Actually, what I did for Cauldron was that I modified like the node software itself to give me debug output. Because I didn't have anything else. At a later point, I figured BitAuth IDE could work with help from Bitcoin Cash Audit. But
what
really
kind of
hard
stuff
to use
did you have your node giving you? That sounds like last time in our last space we were talking about the bad old days of writing AnyHedge when it was just like in the dark and we're just feeling around in the dark trying to make things work.
Well,
why were you having to modify the node?
and it's fitting, aren't these shadow wizards from about that era?
So just in case people don't catch the context, like Dagger is also a pretty competent node developer, like
Yes.
at the lowest level. So yeah, things that are super difficult for other people might actually not be that difficult for Dagger.
Right.
It wasn't too hard to modify the script interpreter.
Lies. Lies.
On a similar note, Digger, so the Cauldron is a website. Look at the Cauldron website. What's your stack? What tools are you using to build that website?
Like the landing page or the application itself?
The application is probably the more interesting. Yeah.
It's just React. So it's the whole website is static. It just uses React, and then all the dynamic data is queried from the blockchain.
Right, but the website, like you're parsing transactions, you're making transactions, you're doing things. Like, are you using libauth for that? Are you using mainnet? What kind of libraries do you depend on for making that?
Well, I depend on your library, like the Electrum Cache, which is a fantastic library. Thank you. And then I use libauth directly. It's libauth is fantastic. It's really hard to use, but you can do everything with it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. libauth can do a lot of things, but the documentation is kind of lacking. It's not very human friendly. It's interesting to
you have to
see more.
You have to kind of decipher the source code. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting to see more and more projects are choosing to use this libauth Electrum kind of stack. It might also interest you that when John mentioned earlier that I should talk about the secret project, one of the other secret projects actually relates to that. And so I'm going to go and just talk a little bit about that while we're on the subject. And so when you're using Electrum Cache, you get a tool that lets you talk with the Electrum servers, but you have to understand the Electrum protocol yourself. And you have to choose how to use it and parse all the data. A lot of people who are using Electrum Cache get to do the same work there. And so in a not too distant future, I'll have another library coming out which provides full typing in TypeScript for all those calls for a specific version of the Electrum Cache protocol, as well as a lot of other goodies that come along with it, for example, automatic SPV validation. So that's something you can maybe look forward to for now, and then a little bit later, I'll ask you if you could give me some feedback.
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. I mean, that might be a bit difficult because there is, the Electrum servers, Rostrum, and the other one, Fulcrum, have started to diverge a bit. So you might get some work if you want to do them be compatible with both, if you're going to implement all the RPC calls.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it and make sure that works out fine.
But it would be nice to have like for example, header validation, just to have some security on the client side. Because right now we're trusting the servers, and in the Cauldron app, I'm only using servers that I actually run myself. I'm not using like
so that's
Electrum server.
That's exactly what I'm building. Pretty down to the point. It's at a stage right now where it starts from a trusted checkpoint, and then it grabs all the headers going forward in time, and it doesn't do all the validation it should do of those headers, but it emits a bunch of events when things happen, and whenever you get a transaction, it looks up that SPV proof and validates it against those headers and things like that. So it's going to make it easier to work with Electrum on the browser side or similar.
Yeah, it's like one of those things everyone has been talking about we should have for many years, but no one has been doing it. So it's if you're doing that, then you're doing a good big favor to all developers.
Yeah,
I would say.
I hope it will be something that is widely used and essentially replaces the Electrum cache library altogether.
And I wanted to go back and make note of something here for Jason Dresner. I hope he listens to this at some point. What just happened was a full node developer said it was pretty hard to use libauth. That's a statement right there. So yeah.
Well, I also said
we definitely need some documentation on that thing.
I also said it's a fantastic library.
It is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to understand. So when a new developer comes in and they're like, what tools should I use? And I'm like, oh, there's this great, easy to use thing, Electrum Cache. And then you're also going to use libauth.
Just simple things like some examples on how to create a transaction would be very helpful.
Right. Actually, we pass out some of our repos that show some of that. So I think probably your work and our work and a few others are that documentation right now, right? That's how we do it. When somebody's like, how do I do this? You just send them a link to some like section of the code where they can see how it's done.
Yeah, I did this before. Try to look at this.
Yeah,
that's true.
Exactly. True. Very cool. All right. Yeah, that's very cool. I want to ask you, I don't know how difficult this is for you to answer. I don't know if you have stats on it, but can you say anything about how much Cauldron is being used? Like, how do you measure it in volume or number of things on it, or what kind of stats could you share with us, like a summary of the stats on it?
Well, stats is one of the things I haven't built, right? I can see there.
It's working, damn it. It's working. We don't know.
But we have like total value locked. We have that. So right now they're around BCH total value locked, which isn't much. At some point we had close to, I guess, 80, but then but that was because of the SOX contract, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's where it starts.
Yeah. I think it was a good start. And but I will have those stats, and at some point I will actually we will be beating general protocol in total value locked.
Oh, bring it! Let's do it.
It's actually very likely. I believe the decentralized exchange market and liquidity staking is probably a larger use case than what we have at the moment. But
Yeah.
we'll have to see, and we also have some tricks up our sleeves coming out over time.
And not
I
only
mean,
that, but we want these things to be tokenized eventually, right, and easier to work with,
Yeah.
and then they'll be on Cauldron anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we could have some symbiotic relationship, I guess,
Oh,
where you
absolutely.
create the
Yeah.
fungible tokens and we trade them.
Yeah, it's
That
one of
means
the things I love about an open ecosystem like Bitcoin Cash, right? Where there's this shared foundation, the public permissionless blockchain, and then there's literally incentive for us to work together. It's really different from the legacy finance.
Yeah, I mean, if you start locking up coins into fungible tokens and then retrade them, then both of us get more total value locked. It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Very nice. Okay, well, I didn't have any other things, but it was very good to have a chance to talk with you, Dagra. Was there something else you wanted to cover while we were on here, or Jonathan?
No, I was just enjoying listening.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't have anything further that needs to be added. I think an hour is about a suitable length for a space like this.
Yeah, and I assume you'll be publishing something eventually about the thing that you have planned, and I definitely want to be there. General Protocols will try to be there, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Dagra, was there anything you wanted to close up with or tell us about before we wrap up?
Oh, not really. I guess we could ask if the listeners want to ask any questions. Or...
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anybody out there who wants to get a voice transmogrifier and come on and talk? We've got a lot of people who are anonymous or pseudo-anonymous, so yeah, we don't get a lot on stage usually.
Do you guys remember the stamps protocol for SLP?
Yeah, of course.
I was thinking about it, and I think you can achieve the same thing with Cauldron. Right, you can have a wallet that just has tokens and no BCH. And like if you need to transfer the tokens, you can also bring in a Cauldron contract and just swap the amount you need for the transaction fee itself.
Yeah, if you're doing something like a tickets app or a identity app or
if you're just airdropping
access.
a lot of fungible tokens on regular users, they don't have to be onboarded with Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, I like
to begin with, right? Yeah.
I like the idea because when a user wants to initiate a conversation, so to speak, or make a transaction with Cauldron and take an action, both parties has an incentive that the transaction succeeds, right? Cauldron wants as much volume it can get because that's kind of how it's going to measure success. And the user wants to take their action. So if the user doesn't have the few satoshis required to move their own part of the transactions, then maybe the Cauldron contract or something just subsidizes that user action. Yeah, could work fine.
Oh, you don't have to subsidize it. You just, if you have like 100K Doge Cash, then you just sell off 10 of those Doge Cash to pay for the transaction fee. There is no subsidizing. You are paying for it just with token instead of Bitcoin Cash.
No, you're definitely subsidizing. Advertise it as subsidizing.
No, there's no subsidizing. It's purely capitalistic.
Purely capitalistic. That's the way. Very cool. All right. Okay. I haven't seen anybody posting any questions. I didn't see anything pop up on Telegram or whatever. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll talk with you next week. Hopefully next week we're going to be talking. You want to say a little bit there about next time?
We have two maybes. So wait, should we actually say who they are before we hammer out the time, or
maybe just the topic? You can say the topic of what we want to talk about.
Oh, I mean, it could be very different. We could be talking about NFTs, or we could be talking about UTXO commitments,
both.
or it could be both. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, UTXO commitments, which will be a super interesting discussion. I'm really looking forward to that. There's so many angles to that. This is a scaling issue. right? This is an important issue about how to scale, which is something that BCH has been dedicated to since the beginning, and we have
it could
work left to do.
it could be the beginning to another legendary chip. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it will be eventually. All of these things that make scaling move ahead, because you never know when things are going to go exponential. We have to be as ready as we can be. Yeah, and then the other is Cash Ninjas, right?
Yeah. Among other things. It could be a lot of things, and I would enjoy all of them. So.
Yeah. All right, so we'll see how that goes. And Dagger, thank you for all your work on Flipstarter and all the things you've done with the smart contracts, and looking forward to competing with you on TVL.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was a great time. Also.
Yeah, okay. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.